Another Democrat, oh, Democrat. Who's a Democrat? Another Democrat trans defender gets owned on CNN. And surprisingly, not by our main man, Scott Jennings. I don't know why he was playing middle ground here, but he did not bring the fire. Instead, it was this House Republican from Georgia who's a former pharmacist who shot right out the gates at this black Democrat. And what do you know? The white pretentious Karen on the CNN set had a problem with what he said as well. It's Sean Daniel here, and today is Sunday, so you know I have a bunch of videos out from all the Sunday shows for you guys. Hope you enjoy. Now let's go.
Congressman Wesley Bell, what are your concerns here?
This is not science, and we know what scientists are saying. We know what the health experts are saying, and it's not what is coming out of Secretary Kennedy's policies. We're seeing anti-vax fringe quack medicine or theories that are now being implemented, and they're not protecting the American people. This is insanity.
What do you think, Congressman Carter?
I agree. This isn't science. This guy who resigned, he is a BDSM Satan worshiper. You look on his Facebook post, you'll see that. He does not need to be in charge of the vaccine program at CDC. He should have been fired long ago. And let me tell you something. He cares more about trans people than he does about children. Bobby Kennedy cares about children. He wants to make sure children are protected. This guy does not care. He wants to make sure that trans are protected. We want to make sure that children are protected from trans and that we keep men out of girls' lockers rooms. That's what we want to do.
No, go ahead, Congressman. You go ahead.
So we're going back to attacking trans folks who are already dealing with challenges that we can't even imagine, and yet we're going to use them as a punchline again. No, let's talk about what's actually happening here. A person with no medical training is running our Health and Human Services Department. His top deputy also has no medical training. This is, again, these are fringe, quack theories that are not based in science. They're not supported by scientists. And so now they have to look for some other way to justify this ridiculousness. It's insanity.
Just like the quack science we had to follow from the CDC about wearing masks, about doing 6 feet of distance, about getting 1 vaccination, about getting 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, then 6, then 7. Oh, maybe that was a different song. That wasn't the exact CDC guidelines, but you guys get the point. And clap it up for that guy and what he said about the spiritual nature of all that stuff. That was fire. That was fire. And all the black guy can do, the black Democrat guy, oh, they're already dealing with so much. I don't know why I did a Trump voice right there. Give me a break.
An attempt to slander this doctor and suggest that he somehow doesn't care about the health of the people that he was appointed to take care of, I think is a pretty gross distraction. We think we are talking about.
He just said.
We are talking about somebody who has spent his life dedicated to trying to help and keep healthy the public, and the attempt to drive this to a place that this conversation to a place that I think a cohort of the MAGA base thinks is politically viable. Like we can make this about the fact that he supports trans people, and that will somehow make this conversation more of a political winner for us. I think is pretty. I think that's pretty cynical.
What did he say in his resignation? He said that he was afraid that we were going to be trying to push trans people out. Did he mention anything about children? No, he didn't mention anything about children.
This is about vaccines.
Exactly. This is about a Health and Human Services secretary who is pushing a theory about vaccines and autism that has been debunked for 20 years by medical science. And having one of the lead public health officials in the country advancing that is a dangerous thing.
How much more authority does RFK have in our minds than the CDC? Do some of us question the influence of Big Pharma? Do some of us question the authority of the CDC after all the things they tried to throw on us with Dr. Fauci? Yeah. And maybe, just maybe, RFK Jr. isn't right on everything, but maybe, just maybe, he's bringing up certain ideas that go against what Big Pharma, what the people who want to make money off of medicine want him to promote. Just maybe.
On vaccines, what are you seeing here?
Well, I think there's actually a couple of channels of this conversation as it relates specifically to the COVID vaccine, which has been a flashpoint lately. You know, I do think there are legitimate questions about whether it should have been mandated, and they took away the emergency designation. I think only 23% of American adults said they got it last year. Only 13% of children were given it. So the American people had started to make a decision about that. On the larger vaccine question, I do personally have some questions about Kennedy's views on this. I don't necessarily agree with him that it is settled regarding the autism link. I'm not opposed to further exploration of it, and I'm not opposed to further investigation of the safety of vaccines. But I think he has gone farther than what the current data and science might suggest. However, a lot of Americans have questions about all of this because of what happened during COVID with some of these officials that we're hearing from now. They didn't cover themselves in glory and what they told the American people about the safety and efficacy of that particular vaccine. So the reason we're here is not because of Kennedy. The reason we're here is because the public health regime deserves to be turned inside out after COVID.
And remember something that Scott Jennings pointed out before about this CDC official who resigned and has all this great credibility, as the media wants to tell you, because they've been a lifelong physician or person in the medical field who's dedicated their life. He said that which they agreed with on the last panel, that this guy had referred to not pregnant women, but he used the term pregnant people, probably because he didn't want to ostracize a certain community. And Scott said, and I'll elaborate on it further, if you're willing to say pregnant people and entertain that pseudoscience, what other authority should you have in the medical field if you can't get a basic fundamental truth, which is, too offensive to say apparently. If you can't get a basic fundamental truth correct, why would we listen to you? Why would we trust that you have any more authority than RFK Jr. on what's good and bad for the CDC, especially if you were in the CDC when they were throwing all these mandates at us with COVID?
I do want to listen to something that RFK said. He repeatedly promised that he would not take vaccines away from people, which effectively, in some cases, that is happening now. Here's what he said.
If vaccines are working for somebody, I'm not going to take them away. People ought to have a choice, and that choice ought to be informed. Of course, we're not going to take vaccines away from anybody. We are going to make sure that Americans have good information right now. I'm not going to take people's vaccines away from them. Right. What I'm going to do is make sure that we have good science so that people can make an informed choice.
CVS and Walgreens are restricting booster shots in more than a dozen states due to the current regulatory environment. It is tougher to get these.
Look, people can get vaccines if they want to get vaccines. I'm a pharmacist. I can tell you, you get most of your vaccines in a pharmacy now, as opposed to a doctor's office. And yes, CVS and Walgreens have cut back on it, but that does not mean they won't be available. They will be available. To sit here and blame Bobby Kennedy for limiting vaccines, that's ridiculous. Bobby Kennedy cares about children. Let me tell you, when my granddaughters were in Camp Mystic in Texas during the floods, Bobby Kennedy called me from halfway around the world to check on them. He cares about children. I can tell you that from a personal experience.
He can care about children and still be advancing theories that are dangerous, that erode confidence in frankly, American medicine that has been at the forefront of global innovation and protecting children and keeping them safe.
What eroded
that is still
confidence in
dangerous.
the CDC was the COVID vaccine. The CDC has lost
who
their
was
clout.
president in 2020 when the COVID vaccine was initially implemented?
And I got to ask, buddy, were there lawyers teaching your pharmacy classes, or were there actual medical professionals teaching these classes? We have the Health and Human Services Director, who has no background, and you're talking about whether he cares.
Are you talking about Becerra, who was a lawyer who was in charge of HHS?
We all care about people. We all care about children, and so God bless that he cares about children. But he has to be qualified to do the job. And then when he is then turning around and reinforcing these fringe medical quack theories, that is dangerous.
Bobby, Wesley, I'm sorry. with all due
cross
respect,
the line.
with all due respect, look, when Bashir was commissioner of HHS, he was a lawyer. He had no business being in charge of HHS. I didn't question that because that was the president's prerogative at that time to appoint him to that position. The same thing goes with Donald Trump. He has that authority as president to have the person in that position that he wants in that position.
So
And
get
he's got
someone
it.
that knows what they're doing, and that's.
Are you
not,
saying that a lawyer who was in charge of HHS knew what he was doing?
Listen, I'm a lawyer, and I have no business running HHS.
Nor did Bashir.
And nor do we have right. So then, if we're going to accept that argument, then let's talk about the fact that we have someone who's talking about anti-vax, and now we're seeing an anti-vaxxer, and now we're seeing diseases that were cured coming back like a bad sequel.
Scott, a final thought to you.
I don't think it's accurate to say he's just an anti-vaxxer. I mean, he's obviously supported vaccines. I do think it's not inappropriate for the government to have, on a rolling basis, investigations of what we're doing, because sometimes we find out that what we're doing or what we told the American people turned out not to be true. So rolling investigations of vaccines and the advice we give the American people on this, on food, which is another big part of his agenda, he has a lot of popular support for that, truthfully.
A thank you to all of you for
So you could tell that the Republican guy seems like a better heart and a better just awareness of what Bobby Kennedy is trying to do, and a much more willingness to question the purposes and mindset of these certain people within these organizations. Whereas the Democrat guy is probably better at laying out his point of view in a factual manner. That's why he's a lawyer, and this guy's a pharmacist. He tried to pull out the arguing about how much he knows Bobby Kennedy and he cares, which is valid. But is it the greatest argument on a TV show? No. But you can tell that he gets frustrated because he knows the reality of the situation of just how Bobby Kennedy is possibly behind the scenes, and also how much he is standing up against when he's going up against Food Incorporated, basically. That's what I like to call it, the whole food industry. Big Pharma, the vaccines. You're telling me that this Republican guy who possibly knows Bobby Kennedy is not aware of the level of attacks he's getting? That's why he came in with fury in the beginning of the video? I'm sure he is. And think for a moment, just how many attacks is Bobby Kennedy and his family dealing with, if he's willing, which it sounds like he is, to go up against Big Pharma? That's so much money. That's so much control. I don't know how he's dealing with it. I mean, they must be trying to pull out any bad story about him, which was supposed to come out, I remember hearing a while ago, but never did. That was a Twitter story. But imagine the different blackmail or negative things they're trying to put out about him and the pressure he's under every day just by standing up to that whole machine of Big Pharma, which this Democrat guy is totally blind to, or he doesn't want to acknowledge, and he wants to just act like the CDC and all that stuff is totally righteous in their endeavors. It's Sean Daniel here. If you enjoyed the video, consider hitting that like button or checking out a fiery video with Dr. Sebastian Gorka right here, where he goes at this CNN host like I haven't seen in a long time. Hope to see you there.